of the important concept we discussed about procedure and as well as a function. Now we will be discussing about the concept of cursors. So what is cursors? Cursor is in PHSQL. Okay. Cursor is in a database programming. You just imagine that you want to have a temporary cache kind of thing. Temporary cache kind of things means temporarily if you want to hold some data for the calculation purpose. Then we have a concept of cursor, which can help us to bring the data and keep in the some temporary rectangular cache kind of things. Okay, and we can process query one row at a time. Okay, so that is what we are talking about is cursor actually. Basically, it will help us to do the various manipulations. Whenever we want to do some based on the computation, we wanted to do update something. So the features will be helpful for the cursor is data retrieval. That means using select statement, you can fetch the row. And if you want to process one row at a time or a row at a time. So if you want to retrieving the data, then definitely you can go for the cursor. A row level processing, because assume that you have a 10 lakh records. I want to cache record by record. Okay, and I wanted to do certain operation, row level processing on specific like adding a bonus we have seen. Okay, adding a mark plus 5% if you wanted to do that. So those are all the row level processing, and you will be having control on the traverse, whether the data is moved from forward or a backward, you can do that. Okay, but traversing on the data set, it can be done, or what we call as a result set here. And scrollable cursors, some of the additional what we call it as the packages may support for the scrollable cursors also. It means that we can forward and backward. Okay, the grid kind of solutions I am talking about. Data manipulation, cursor can be used not only for reading the data, but also for updating, deleting, and inserting a data into the database. And parameterization of the queries, based on that also you can operate. So that is what cursor. And cursor can be many types. You can say that, okay, it may be scrollable cursor, dynamic cursor, static cursors. Okay. Anyhow, just we wanted to understand. Basically nowadays, as I said, okay, we are using the higher level programming language to perform various tasks. But the day it has been started, these are the handy tools which are helping in database side to compute the business logic. Okay, and because of that, the people are keep using. But only problem when you write this type of the stored procedure, the complexity will increase. If any small issues are there, it is very, very difficult to debug. That is the only challenge we have as a part of a cursor. So cursor, also you can refer to a one cursor to the another reference cursor to the pointer to a cursor. Within a one cursor, I can write another cursor also. So that means cursor nesting is also possible. At least at this moment, just remember there is a concept of cursor. It is just like a rectangular table. We are bringing to the temporary result set kind of things, and we are using for the computation purpose. Let us try to understand how exactly we are going to build it. So first you have to understand the declaration part, then opening the cursor, then how do you fetch the details, okay? And then how do you check whether a cursor reached the end of the data or not, okay? That is what we are doing. And we are performing some operations in while and network, and then we are closing the cursor. So these are some of the standard steps we follow when you are writing the cursor. What we are doing, first declare cursor name. Some name should be given for the cursor. For select column 1, column 2 from which table and where condition. So that means first you have to declare the cursor. So if I like a variable, because it is also one type of variable. So just you have to declare one variable. It may be a matrix. So maybe something, let me see. Cursor in images. let me, if you look at this, this is just like a temporary set. You are reading the cursor. This is like a rectangular. Okay. So this is what I wanted to say. Okay. But if you look at this cursor, this one record, this another record, another record, based on the some condition query, you have brought it here, and we are processing the record by record. So that is what I can say that. Now, if I want to declare first from which table, what are the columns in the column, because table may be having 10 columns, but I need only 2 columns. So then like a declare cursor name, the cursor name you can give like XYZ cursor some name. Okay, cursor for which table and which condition. Based on that, I may create a employee number and employee salary is a one cursor for our computation. Select like a employee number and employee or a salary from the employee table where salary is greater than or belongs to a some department or something like that. So at the end of the day, you should understand the declaration for the cursor is similarly. If you want to like a open the cursor, okay, how do you do that? Open cursor name. So whichever the cursor you have queried, it is just like you have attached the tab actually. Okay. So now if you want to open the tab, so open a cursor name actually. So once you open it, fetch the data from the cursor. So when you try to get the data from cursor name, so you have a opened, and if I try to put it, okay, some like for example, I have retrieved 2 columns, employee number and salary. So if I want to put to the temporary variable, just to indicate if it is able, if the data is available after opening, then you can put the value. Otherwise, it has not returned any value, so 0. Okay. So just to verify it, we are checking first row whether data exists or not. Okay. If it exists, then like a it can do it can go to the loop the process which is fetched the data, and we can perform whatever the operations we want. Okay. And record by record, once again, see, because every time you have to record by record, you have to fetch and you have to process. Then the while loop, once it is done, it will be completed. Then once the cursor is used, we are going to close the cursor name. That means we have declaration part. Then I can use temporary variable to move to a certain column record to this, just to indicate whether data exists or not. Based on that, okay, we are going to perform the operation record by record. We are going to iterate till this status is equal to 0. If it is modified, okay, fetch status is equal to like a 0, it is doing. That means it is modified to some other value. Then we exit from here and we can close the cursor. This is the syntax of the cursor. That means basically there will be a table. From that table, we are retrieving some records and we keeping that as a result set under the name of one name called cursor name. And here it is has a capability to move forward using the some fetch statement, and we can pass a temporary variable. Based on the fetch status, we can perform various operations till the last record in the cursor. And once that is done, processing is done, we have to close the cursor. So this is how the syntax of the cursor standpoint. Okay. If you look at this, okay, most of the time usage, we have stored procedure also, we have function also. Along with that, we are using the cursor also. So if you look at the usage, actions and tasks will be done by stored procedure. Functions, they always use it for computation. Already in the previous session, I have told that we will not perform insert, delete, update kind of, only for computation, average salary, some computation we are going to do here. And here data iterations. That means we are loading the data and moving the data record by record based on our interest in the number of columns. Here return values, stored procedure, none are out parameter. So that means stored procedure is nothing but either it will return or out parameter, but it can function always return can a single value. But here just row by row, it can iterate. So one record, you are going to get it. Return type, no return value. Scalar, or table. Okay, so that means it may return data type can be like anything. No return value here. Just it is it is not a value. Invocability call statement. Here SQL select SQL. We have seen that yesterday, and this is not applicable. Transaction support control stored procedure is supported. Since we are not operating with table for update or modify commands, okay, not supported. Where cursor, it is always dealing with the database. So that's why transaction control should be there. So that means stored procedure and cursor has it. Error handling, stored procedure is supported, function supported, but cursor, it doesn't, we cannot consider it is a great, what we call it as, great support it has, especially for the cursor. Modifies the database site, yes, no, depends on the usage. Like use SQL queries, here stored procedures, but we majority of time we do some concept. Okay, here majority of time we use select statement. Okay, and here cursor, this is also loading similar to a stored procedure. Data updates, log, calculation, data retrieval will be part of this one. So this is how the cursor will be the part of it. For example, for our understanding, even though we have worked on that, so let us go and understand. So these are 5 programs. I will showcase you 1 or 2 programs, and you can execute by using this lab set completely actually. Any questions before getting into? Yeah. Able to
No.
follow? Yeah. Now, if you look at this, okay, just as we know the status, how to read and how to retrieve. Now fetch and print the student name. So this is the first program you want to fetch and get the student names and print it. That's all we are doing. Okay. Second program may be fetch students by department. Okay, let us see this. For this, I need to create a database. Let me drop this schema. Now, let me not to confuse too much. Let me do this. Create database UPLDB. Refresh it. The skeleton of the database is created. Now let me create, use this, use database UPLDB. So use DB UPL database. So it is bold color will be selected, or you can do the double click also. Now we can insert a students. Okay, then I wanted to insert a sample data for student. Student has ID, name, department, and attendance. And we are inserting name, department, and attendance. We are updating here. Okay, so this is done. Similarly, we have create employees. We have create employee table. So ID, name, and salary. And for our preparation, just I am making a preparation to show work on the cursor. So we have done this. Now we have executed this one. Now let us do first program, fetch and print the student names. Now we have 2 tables. One is select star from students, I think. Another one is select star from employees. Now if you execute this, so we have the name, department, attendance. Similarly, if you have employees, we have name and salary. Once this is done, let me go here. Okay, the cursor retrieves all student names from a student, okay, table, and prints them. That's all simple steps we are doing. We are not doing any great job here. Just we are retrieving the, so create procedure, fetch students. So, okay, this is a normal procedure. we have to begin. So we have done something. So here you can see we are retrieving the details from the cursor. So how we are doing? Declare cursor name, cursor for select how many columns, only name column for this. So this is what we have done. This is the cursor name. So then I said, as I said, it is opening of the cursor. Now I can use while fetch state or something like that according to that, or I can use read loop. Okay, read loop. Read loop. Okay, read loop. So here, if you look at this loop, fetch cursor into a student name. So I am moving the so now if you look at that, here we have open cursor, read loop. This is the label, and loop. We are looping this loop, fetch cursor into a student name. So we are taking only one column is their student name. So then just we are printing select student name and end loop, and we are doing this. So cursor, this is just for opening cursor. We wanted to show how to declare the cursor on a table, then close the cursor. So that's all 3 steps we wanted to showcase. For that, I have written this cursor actually. So if you execute this, so cursor has been created. And now if after creating the cursor, now if you call fetch students. Okay. So now if you see that, if you see this, it is executing line by line. Calling line by line. So it is just like a for loop, but it is in the, when you declare here, it has filled to a temporary table kind of cache table where you are trying to iterate here. So this cursor is helping us to do the various manipulation by retrieving the data. So this is what we have done as a part of cursor. Any questions here? Yeah.
So, sir, over here, the cursor is acting like a cache memory or something like that, sir. Right?
Yes, almost the cache memory. In that cache memory, you are doing the various operation record by record. Every time if you go back to the like a table and retrieve a record, unnecessary overhead of time, right? Okay. So assume that 10 lakh records are there. In the 10 lakh records, I need to operate only 100 records. Based on certain conditions, I retrieve the records, 100 records. Then after that, then I will try to apply the certain conditions. Any questions? Hello?
No, sir, no questions.
Okay. Hello. Yeah. So basically, what we are talking about is like we are trying to load the data into the cache memory, and record by record we are iterating and do the computation. That's all we are doing. Why are we doing? The performance wise we wanted to improvise, so that we have done here actually. Similarly, if I want to work with a some parameter like a department name, I wanted procedure I have passed. And so this is the same declaration is required, as I said. Then the open cursor that is required. Then read the loop and this one standard. Then we are closing. But what we are doing is we are parameterizing the procedure, and the same thing we can apply when you are loading the data. We can filter the table data, not entire table data. Rather, we can filter based on a certain conditions. That is a parameter. Usually, actually, this is a parameter through the procedure. Within that cursor, we can use this by parameterizing it. So this is this program just to showcase you, like given, we can use the parameterization for the cursor. Just like the select name students where department name is equal to whichever the department, computer science, mechanical, whatever you wanted to pass it, you can pass it. So we have that. So now if you look at this, fetch students by department, whichever the department you pass, only those records can be used. So this is how call fetch students by departments. So it is doing this. So similarly, if I want to update salary, okay. So based on that condition, I want to retrieve the data. Something like that, a salary which is lesser than 50,000, I want to apply the increase the salary. Whose salary is lesser than like a 50,000, those records I can get here. Then if I want to perform some operations, I can perform. Then I am executing the update code because this is a procedure. But once you load attach touch, instead of loading one value in cursor, we are able to load entire conditional basis records actually. So for example, select star from employee name, some working for certain computer science department we have seen. Similarly, whose salary is lesser than 5,000. So this is indicating that, okay, cursor, how this employee ID done, this variable is there. Even cursor is also one type of variable, but it is not having the one value. Instead of that, based on the query, it will be having the rectangular lookup kind of table that is called a cursor. And using that table, instead of going fetch it, every time you have to go to the query to the table, which is very costly. Rather than there are already data is available in cursor, means it is in the main memory only. Just you have to compute it and do perform operation. Then only the minimize the query execution. That is the advantage to use the what you call it as a cursor. So this is an example to showcase that, okay, if procedure has to, otherwise what it has to do, every time I have to retrieve the record and then I have to apply the update. So rather than one time read and then process and update. So that is how we can save a lot of time. That's why people are using this process. So similarly, if you want to update the salary, just with single click, okay, you can invoke. So that's why the cursors are extensively used in the stored procedure. Similarly, we are having a cursor with multiple columns. You can do that. So here name is there, salary is there. Both we have taken. And so temporary variable here declared is that already I have told you first you have to declare the variable. So similarly, fetch cursor into a employee name and employee salary. And it is displaying. If you want to do some operations, you can do that as well. So it is just like a, not only just one column, you can do that. You can retrieve more than one column. So that is this is the program. Here it is taking name and salary, both one, and it has executed. And just we are not one record we are showing. So record by record, we are processing. Okay, but with two columns. So this is how we can do that. So likewise, we can execute the cursor. So any questions? So able to follow at least what is cursor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, here what is this declare continue handler for not found set? Can you explain that
That
again,
is
sir?
exception handling, madam. So if you want to use exception handling, if it is not found, raise the exception. That's it. Okay. If any
Okay.
exception
Here
comes,
what not found? I didn't
we have
understand.
not used it. Here we have not used it. Okay. If anything is there, it will be set. But when you want to use the exception handling, then we can use this variable. Okay. But here, nowhere I have used it, right? So now it is used, done is equal to 1. Okay. For example, it is to handle that exception handling, like if you have an exception handling concept in Java or a C#, the same concept is applied here, but it is just the standard messages will be thrown and it will come out. Otherwise, it should not go to the infinite loop. That is what we wanted to avoid. Yeah. Is it clear? But actually, I have shown one example in handler. We show the message. Okay, raise the message. That time people will use it. Now just I have used for by default done is equal to 1. If it is by whenever exception comes, okay, any exception comes or end of file comes, what we are doing, we are set 1. So that means if it is reached, okay, so it is end of the cursor. So that means then cursor automatically finished. So because of that, now done is equal to 1 will be there. Then automatically we leave. Leave means break kind of loop we are doing, and we are going to print it. So every time we are doing that actually. So this is how we are taking care of that. Yeah. So then this is similar to delete operations. Most likely we will follow the same standard procedure, the cursor. I think if you want to understand that quickly, you should remember always these steps. Just you have to declare a cursor, and there should be a table associated with. So how many columns you wanted to make, whether single column cursor or multi-column cursors, you have to do that. Since how many columns you are taking, that many temporary variable you have to take. This is a standard procedure. And then if you want to, this is just like you are fixing the tab. Now tab I have to open. That is nothing but for water flow. That is nothing but open cursor name. So first record we are pushing here just to check whether data exists or not. It depends how you write the logic. Then after that, we perform the operation, and record by record, we keep moving it. So this is the logic. And finally, everything is processed. We are going to close the cursor name. So instead of handling one variable, we can handle the table kind of data and process row by row. That is what we call it as a cursors. This will improve the performance rather than hitting every time for read operations, every record to the table query. Just one query you can execute, load the data, then work with around that, and finally you can complete the task with less time. So that was the advantage to use the cursor. So is it clear to all of you? Yeah, Supriya.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what is the purpose of using cursor, sir?
No, cursor is nothing but I told, right, to improvise the performance. So for example, if I want to, there is a select star from employee where employee number, salary is greater than 50,000, maybe 10 lakh records are there. So how many select queries you have to write to read the data? If I want to work record by record, I have to write some, if you know high level programming language, we used to write for loop, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Or okay, then you have to every time that has to be done. But somewhere I have to keep that that 10,000 data or 1,000 data somewhere in the temporary cache, right? If you use that, then I do not require to write a query record by record for 10,000 records. Rather, take all 10,000 records out of 10 lakh records and keep in some temporary variable. That temporary variable is here cursor. But cursor has some process, that is opening the cursor, how to assign the cursor, and how to process the cursor. That is what we are doing. This will help us improving the performance, and you do not require to write a query every time to the database, which is very costly actually, because 90% of time we do the select operations. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this concept, the cursor is completed. So we have last part, which we call it as a trigger. So what is trigger? It is just a, like, for example, you could remember that event handling, how it works. So same thing, we call it as a trigger here. So trigger in the sense, okay. Triggers is nothing but it is a database object automatically message or do the logging or something like that. So what do you mean by that? Let me explain in simple term. For example, whenever you want to insert a record on a table, I want to give some message or some appropriate action I have to take. That's a trigger. When I want to delete a record, I wanted to do certain actions. So that is a trigger. Similarly, when I want to modify certain column value, I want to notify, so that is a trigger. So trigger is nothing but it is just a notification window to say that and notification window, and also it helps to perform certain task. For example, you are working on the banking application. Suddenly, I wanted to log means I wanted to store the information. Whenever you go to the ATM and you insert a card, and when you are inserting a card, assume that, okay, you give the PIN number, everything you have given. Like we are withdrawing. When you are withdrawing 5,000 money, something from out of 1 lakh. So then I need to keep that record. So they can create a one cache log kind of table. So there they can go and update saying that, look, this the ID, user ID has withdrawn money from this account at this time. I may save that log. For example, in that situation, hardware dispenser is failed. Assume that. Now what will happen? We will be panic and we'll call to the call center that, look, I tried to retrieve the money. Messages come, but unfortunately, the dispenser has not dispatched. Now the call center guy will tell that, don't worry, I will go and check. Then they will call to the first level or second, you call to a first level person. They call to us technical people. And then technical people will say that, give me some time. They will go upon and see the log file. What time they will see that, and how much amount is there, and how much that entry, everything they will take, whether this person only it has been done, then automatically it will be retransferred to this account. So how this is possible? So this type of some support solution system should be there. So the best example is this for a trigger. Trigger is nothing but whenever you perform certain operations on the database, you wanted to take a certain actions or notifications. So that is how we are working on the triggers. Now, if you click on the button, I want to move to the next screen. That is also a trigger, but that we call it as events, right? So that is how triggers is different, but it is in the database side. Like it is a set of actionable operations, I can say that is called trigger, and it will occur only when one specific event occurs. What are the key features if you want to say that event-based triggers? So activated only when predefined events exist. Like what are the predefined insert command, update, delete occur on a specific table. So this is called event-based trigger. Similarly, if I want to operate on a per row basis, so each record I wanted to do something actually. So that is called row level trigger. On particular time I wanted to notify, okay, for validation or something like that. So that is called timing based triggers also we can do. I can use on a same table multiple triggers. Okay, that is also possible because sometimes complex logic has to be built. Data access, both hold before the event and after the event I wanted to check, or I wanted to compare, and I wanted to store somewhere. So one trigger occurs, may do another trigger. That means the sequencing of the events. So that is also possible. Basically, when you do the trigger, so you should write the trigger syntax like this: create, trigger name, and before and after. Please remember this syntax, okay? Before, after, and insert, update, delete. So these are the standards: before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete. Name is going to the trigger name. On which table, employee table, department table. So like this, you can create a trigger. For each row, or if you want to perform certain operations, so begin and end. For example, here example 1, before insert trigger, automatically set the created column before inserting a new column, new record. So what is this trigger? Simple example we are giving: create trigger when before student insert, before inserting to a student table. So then this is the name I have given. Before is the first I have taken from here. Then from where insert, on which table, students table. For each row, what it has to do: begin, set it is setting the new created at current time, now time. So it is created now only. The time we are setting the value. We have not shown the additional logic. Just we are showing some logic, just to show that okay, how triggers are called. Triggers are called before inserting a records on a student table. That is how it is done. Similarly, if we want to do update trigger, okay, log changes to a separate table whenever the marks of students are updated. So whenever the student marks are modified, I want to keep track of that and I may create a one more table. Example here, create table marks underscore log. Okay, it has log ID, student ID, old marks, new marks, and updated at which time. So that is a current time stamp. So that means whenever the record, if marks has to be updated, automatically this table will be affected. So then what to do that? Create trigger after marks update. So then as I said, after update, so after update on which table name, so which table name for each row, begin what we are doing, whenever it is you are updating on a student table, it has to go to this marks log. So insert a marks log with details of student ID, what is the old marks he has scored, what is the new marks he scored. So and this is the values we are passing, and finally it is going to end. And this is how the trigger will be created during the update command. When you are writing the update query on a certain table, I want to maintain that data entry of that. Okay, then we can write this type of trigger actually. Similarly, delete. Okay, we can use the delete trigger, create trigger before, prevent the deletion of students who have pending fees. Okay, who have pending fees. So the students cannot be moved out of XYZ institutes, or a certificate should not be given unless the pending fees should be paid, or he should not be allowed to take the exam. So then create trigger before student delete, before delete on which table student for each row, and we are doing. So if old dot pending fees, old pending fees are there, then raise a signal. Signal is nothing but exception to be raised. What is the number we have to give? 45,000 we have given. Set message text cannot delete student with pending fees. So unless they create the pending fees, we are not allowing to do any operations. This is how the triggers can be created. That is, any questions here for triggers?
So what is this
Yeah.
old? Is it an instant of the table, students table?
So that is
Where are we
like a
declaring?
no, here we have not declared actually. Old or new, these are the predefined in these things. But here, instance I have not created here. So let me show you executing, then you'll understand. So, but concept wise, you are clear, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me execute, then you'll understand. So just we'll take this only. One or two scenarios we'll discuss. Let me go here. Let me draw this. Okay. Let me take create table, student ID, name, marks. Similarly, so I want to maintain the history. That is nothing but student logs, log ID, which student, what is the action he is performed, and which time. Now let me go here. Now, as I said, this is the name of this one. Before insert on students, for each row, we have created already student log, student ID, action. What is the action we are doing? Insert action. So they inserted. Okay. For new, so predefined one is there. Okay, new dot student ID. That means new record you're inserting. It is not the existing record. Let me execute this. This trigger is created. So let me insert this. This is a new record. It is not a existing record because it is a new ID. Name Ramesh. So then go to the student logs. So log ID, one is created, student ID is 0, first record, inserted, and which type. So as I said in ATM, if I wanted to do this, so we can do that. Now, old, if I want to do update, then old will be used, I think. Old, no, it is not that. Okay, for new record, it's maybe update queries, maybe have. Let me see that. Here also, here it is. Okay, let me show here update one. So create trigger before marks update, before update on students for each row. If new marks is lesser than, this is the ID and this is the message, like exception, rise an exception. So signal, okay, then do this. Now, if marks is lesser than 0, that is nothing but I'm doing the update, this one, query. It should not allow, but rather it should notify. So mark cannot be negative. So this is not allowing, it is giving the some message saying that marks cannot be negatives because you have given lesser than 0. So that is this is how the error message will be thrown. For that, we can use the signal. And here, the trigger is whenever it is there, we are raising the exception, and we are stopping this one. So we can do any operations. Logic is up to you, but this example is like this actually. And also, if I want to before deleting a student record, store it in the backup table. So this is that we create a one student backup table. Okay, and so create trigger before student delete and for each to insert on student backup, student ID, name, marks. So values will be old one, maybe it is old name, old marks. So let me execute this. Okay. Delete from, which is the ID, old one. It is not a new, it is a old one. So MySQL has a certain, the predefined one. Okay. Let me, now student ID, one row is affected. So let me go here. Let us see. Students backup is created or what. So it has created the student ID, which is available in the old object. Okay, it has taken the backup from this table. Okay, it has taken that backup and inserted into this value. So student into values. So already existing record, it is taking before executing this delete. First, it is going to execute this one. Take that object and that is in old.student ID, old.name, old.marks. It is adding. If it is a so this for delete, it is considered as a old record or existing record. So this is not a new value, and like this, it is going to execute. So this is what it is checking this. Basically, what are we trying to do is in trigger earlier days. Now we are not using these triggers because we are not writing the business logic at the back end only. So maybe I'm talking about 15 years back. We might have been used extensively because triggers are that time Now no one is doing this actually because everyone in Python or Java or .NET, we do it because even basically I remember when we were working for more than I think 2003 or something like that. That time we used to use this. Okay, there we used to use the procedures and just to generate some 3-4 reports from HRMS, so like attendance management. Combinedly, if I wanted to do certain operations, more than one database, so then we used to write a procedure or a views, and using that we used to do the various operations. But very rarely people are use this, but it is good that if you remember and recollect, okay, there is a one concept called trigger. Especially in web application, majority of time people may not use it, but PLSQL very rarely we will use it because of debugging challenges. But as a data analyst, we may get a chance to work on this because there may be a situation that, okay, we may be having the challenge of performance, or only we wanted to consolidate to the database layer only. In that scenarios, we can use it. But normally, anyone who wants to be web developer recent days, okay, I don't think so. You will be extensively using of the triggers actually. But at this moment, just remember there is a concept called triggers also, and how to use it. We are trying to understand. So this is how we can do that. Similarly, if I want to write a complex logic on whenever the student marks are updated, the grade should be updated automatically. So if after updating any table, automatically it should compute and give the grade. For example, someone is the marks is already entered, okay, and suddenly he set for the revaluation. Once the revaluation is done, they notice that, okay, his marks has to be changed. So then in that situation, they can do this actually. So that kind of situations, when you do this, we can use this type of things. So, but basically till now, we believe that everything we handle through the coding platforms like a high-level programming language like Java or C# or a Python, not in the database level, but earlier days when the programming language is also not extensively competent, okay, and so at that time, majority of time we used to use it. But at this moment, I think just if you have to understand at very high level, there is a concept of triggers, there is a concept of cursor. Do 1 or 2 whatever the programs I am going to share, just execute, understand, okay, that would be sufficient as a SQL, usually SQL, and also additionally, I wanted to give update on the PLSQ. That's why we have given this one. So this, I think we covered majority of a concept, okay. And I wanted to discuss the certain use cases, like as a web developer and all. I think I need 30-40 minutes, maybe use case study, where I wanted to discuss, okay, how applications and data analytics normally we use. So I will take some small application, and I wanted to database level I wanted to discuss actually. So how do we create a database structure, okay, the tables and all those things at very high level I wanted to discuss. Probably in the next session I will be taking this, okay, so that I can conclude the database concept. So this completes your SQL training, and I expect you people to go and brush up properly. And once that is done, then we'll go to the, I think, Python session. Whoever is missed, okay, they can go and attend session from Monday. And in parallel, I will look into it next week onwards, maybe Power BI or Tableau, so that you can have an understanding of the visualization part. So any questions before conclude?
Sir, I have one. In general, when we talk about performance, like you said, by using cursor, the performance increases, or when we normalize the table, it becomes better. So, how do we determine like the performance is actually getting better? I mean,
That
how do
is
you calculate that?
no, see, usually if you are in a maintenance project, okay, if someone has written the logic and something it is not loading properly, then within 30 seconds or 60 seconds, it is not loading data properly or processing time it is then obviously they will tell you just look into whether it is a code issue or a database issue. So then obviously we'll go and debug and say that, okay, identify which piece of code will be having the issue. So then we will be evaluate saying that what kind of logic they have implemented and whether that is reasonably we need to correct in the programming language level or a database level. So in database level, sometimes just by indexing also we can improve the performance. So it is up to us, okay. And finally for customer bot, within 30 seconds, they have to load and see that. And majority of time, traditional old applications, we have these type of challenges.
So you can measure that only from a front-end application. You cannot do it from the database itself,
No,
sir.
database also will be there. Database query times, query analyzer will be there.
Okay.
Okay, so the query analyzer people will go and look into it. So which query is taking more time? Okay, those are all the things will be there. Okay, if you start exploring as a DBA kind of thing, you can get those logs also. Okay, but we
Okay,
didn't
thank you, sir.
get into the extent because just we are exploring as a part of your training. We are giving awareness, but when you real time this one, you have a lot of things to explore in the real time. We face the lot of challenges, logs, everything we're going to see that in terms of performance and all those things. But what most of the people do in the training is we'll try to give the awareness, but when you are working in the real-time projects and all those things, those challenges you can do that, and finally you will be updating in your resume saying that, okay, I worked on, I have an experience on these things, like that you will be mentioning. Yeah. You got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So Monday onwards, so please, whoever is missed the Python sessions, okay, please start joining that. And then I will be continuing with Tableau and Power BI for visualization part. Okay, thank you very much for joining. Thanks a lot.